But
you
the accuracy is very high from the first moment you use it because we're using for grounding our entity awareness, the business context. We're using the customers' corporate data for their benefit. So we're not guessing. So for example, let's say we want to understand if you mix as a bank between one customer data to another, we know the customer base, right? That's how the system works. So we can identify it. And it's not kind of like something that in the first week will be 70% correct, maybe in 2 months, 85%. As long as we have the data and we digested the contextual data, it can be extremely accurate from almost day one.
So how do you ensure that you're getting all of the data? Because you also mentioned previously, there's all these different I just view them as like different, I don't know, use cases or people or entities within the environment. Someone's using Copilot, someone's using ChatGPT, another person's using SharePoint to pull data from and to and whatnot. There's so many different like data origination points. How do you ensure that you have them all? Like, how does that even work?
No, it's a great question. So of course we cannot force anyone, right, to have all of the information flows or systems available to a Bonfire. But let's discuss our side for that, and then how kind of practical implementation would look like. The platform, which you call Bonfire ACS, Adaptive Code Security Platform, is a multi-channel architecture data security, right, solution. So it's designed with one core content analysis engine that is using the business context and business logic to analyze and take actions as you define them, regardless of the source of data. It can be email, line, it can be file sharing for data at rest, it can be web traffic coming from your browser. It can work in the same way. It can work on different information flows with the same system, same logic. So you can apply, let's say, the same customer trust policy to different information channels. You don't need to do it 7 different times with different systems, etc. Now, when we are onboarding customers, of course, they don't start in day one with everything. Boiling the ocean is typically a great recipe for a failing project, right? So typically what happens, they are starting with one or two connectors, let's say to the most important systems. Between us, most of them start with Microsoft 365 or alike, because 80, 90% of the enterprises have it, and it has a lot of issues. Not blaming Microsoft or not, but because it's a core data store of so much information, collaboration tools and emails and all of that stuff. Naturally, it has a lot of sensitive data, and the controls around it typically are very rudimentary. Even if customers bought Purview, as we said, many of them have very little use. If you put on top of that Copilot adoption, it's out of control, and we're seeing a lot of organizations that are urgently looking for a solution like that. So many organizations start with that. They don't have to start with, let's say, connector to Microsoft 365, maybe yet another connector like Salesforce or another system that they wish. Start to get visibility, getting automatically entity risk scoring, which is a byproduct of what we do because we quantify the risk of every piece of data which is sent or shared. Then we can actually quantify the risk of the actors as well. So it can support inside the risk management program if they wish. The organization don't have to use it, but it comes out of the box as a byproduct of what we do. Tune policies, right? We have out of the box policies for a lot of different topics like privacy, IP leakage, customer trust, toxicity, and many others. But they can tune them, turn them on, off, add their own policies. So tune them, start defining, watch it for a while, days, week, two, see what's there, and then start to define some automation rules like in what condition do we want to escalate to the SIEM, to a SOC, let's say via SIEM integration. When do we want to take active enforcement action because something looks like a mass PHI leakage that we're not going to take the risk and we just want to block this type of a sharing, etc. So then you can turn it on along the way. And the second dimension is say, okay, great, now it works great. I trust it. I know how to use it as an organization. Let's connect it to more information flow, maybe web traffic via browser extension, maybe to other SaaS applications like ServiceNow or Jira or Salesforce or alike, where you have a lot of sensitive information with very little visibility as well. So it's typically gradual implementation once you get it going. Again, part of the benefit of having a multi-channel architecture, you have one policy plane, one business context, applies everywhere. So it saves a lot of effort and time for the organization on one end. Second, provides a lot of visibility for the actual risk. Think about when you have a user that, let's say, maliciously going to leave the company, sales rep, let's say, and you see suddenly some strange use of some based on web traffic, and you see some maybe sending some information to some unknown Gmail, and maybe often opening a file share with external party, maybe all of it together looks like some pattern I need to notice. So the fact, of course, the solution along the way will tap into multiple channels, can provide even better visibility for organizations to address higher level risk, let's say.
That makes sense. So, as an end user, am I onboarding my domains into your platform and then activating all of the different integrations that, like all the different integration points that I have?
It's actually pretty simple. It depends, of course, on the information flow. But for SaaS applications like Microsoft 365 or Salesforce or Jira and all of them, we're just using their APIs. So very, very simple. It takes a few minutes on the platform end. On our end, it takes a couple of minutes to put the, let's say, service keys and the like, and then it's working. Seriously, as simple as that. We have also an embedded SMTP server. So if people want to send emails via us, right, to use as a relay with all of the remediation actions, we can do it as well as an alternative with APIs. So we can actually support web traffic, custom applications. We actually are going to introduce soon an MCP server interface. So basically different interfaces that can use the same engine, regardless if it stems from machine, human interaction with the world, let's say another system or another agent, using workspace like Microsoft or Google type of workspace type of solutions or SaaS applications. All of them can flow to the same engine for the same type of risk analysis. So pretty powerful.
Wow. I mean, legacy technologies, they're very rigid in this space. Like they're very rigid, not really working with, where the organization is, where they may have their data, 100%, right? And like all of the other legacy solutions that I've seen, it's kind of like, yeah, we can identify all of this stuff in SharePoint, but we're not going to be able to see, Copilot. We're not going to be able to see ChatGPT, right? Like all of this other stuff. And even the ability, like you mentioned, the ability to potentially even like build your own web interface for it, for like your internal team or whatever it might be. It's totally there and it's powered by your solution. I mean, that's incredibly powerful, incredibly useful to, I mean, big and small companies, but I feel like bigger companies would be using that feature a whole lot more because they're more around let's buy a product and then build it for the way that we use it and need it, right? And so you're turning your product into the engine for someone else's, web interface or whatnot.
Yeah.
That's huge.
No, we agree. That's exactly why we do that. That's why we believe that a vision is great, but needs to be translated to a real product, a real platform which is designed to fulfill the vision. I think we're seeing even startups, right, in the DLP or DSPNs, right, spaces that are doing better with the old concepts, right? So taking the old concept and implementing them again with, let's say, better technology, better filtering, better architecture. But we believe that that won't solve anything. There's just need to change the concepts of how data security is done because it's just too complex for organizations, right? To have some data access governance in just a nicer interface when you have millions of files doesn't change anything, won't solve any problem, right? So the space has to be reinvented and reinvented in a way which provides both the visibility control along all of those channels that you just, like the example you just mentioned, custom applications, let's call it for example, with the same engine, without the need for the security teams to be expert in everything, which is part of the issue, right? Think about today, let's say large enterprise, how many different information systems or information flows they have, and each one of them might have its own data loss filtering capability. It's crazy. And then you expect the security team to be able to be expert in all of that stuff, consistent implementation of the policies they have, provide visibility for the insider risk or other entity risk in a holistic way. It's just impossible.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's completely impossible, especially with the shrinking team size of
Yeah,
security.
true.
Organizations aren't spending on cybersecurity like they used to.